Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat. Welcome back to the second hour of Tip Today. Well, Leanne certainly has started something. Fran, if you get a bad cut on your hand or your leg or anywhere, you pee on it and it stops the bleeding. And it's a very good disinfectant. Now, how you could pee on your head, I'm not all that sure, but there you go. It's one to ponder on. I'm sure you'll agree. Yes, cobwebs for arresting bleeding. Looking through a gold ring for a sty in your eye. Rubbing the dew on your face on May morning at dawn for acne. 3 meals of young nettle tops in May for topping up the iron content in the blood after the winter. Dandelion juice for warts. Our brain believes what we tell it and our body reacts accordingly. What do you think, Fran? Says Betty. Well, I think you could well be right, Betty. 083 311 3311. Sorry for global news, and delighted to be joined as usual by Thomas Conway from the Nina Guardian. Good morning to you, Thomas.
Good morning, Fran.
And good to see you today. Will we start with the brand new Supreme Leader for Iran? Will you tell us about him?
56-year-old Mujtaba Khamenei, second son of the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. He is a hardliner. Heavily influential in terms of his links to the IRGC. That's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the regime's Praetorian Guard. There has been speculation for years that Mujtaba would be Ali Khamenei's successor. Now, there was some fear on the part of the late Supreme Leader that because he was his son, that he may not be an ideal choice, because it would introduce the idea of a hereditary line of succession, and that's exactly what the theocracy was established to get rid of, with the Shah and all that.
My understanding of that now is very deep, and we can't afford to go into it, but that would be the difference between Shiite and
Yes, yeah, that because it has to do with the succession to the Prophet Muhammad, and it goes back centuries. And yeah, I think you're right there. And Iran obviously is predominantly Shia as a country. Places like Saudi Arabia would be more Sunni.
Yes.
So that's that was one of the concerns. Another concern about Mujtaba is he's relatively inexperienced politically. And in terms of his religious qualifications. I mentioned it on Friday, he's a mid-ranking cleric. He's not an ayatollah, which is the highest ranking cleric you can have, or one of the higher senior clerics. Politically, we know very little about him. I mean, I've heard reports that Iranians don't know what he sounds like. We have a few pictures of him. He bears kind of an uncanny resemblance to his father, except younger. And it will be very interesting to see how much power he wields. I suspect because there was a plan for when the Supreme Ali Khamenei was assassinated, apparently he delegated a lot of power to the IRGC, to the different factions there, and told them to almost operate autonomously. So I'm not sure how much power Mujtaba will have over the wider Islamic Republic. It's going to be very interesting. He will also have a problem in keeping himself alive, because immediately now he is a prime target for the US and for Israel.
Was his wife not killed in the attack on the Ayatollah?
His wife was killed, his mother was killed, his sister was killed, and he was apparently injured. Now, obviously, he wasn't grievously injured, because he must be in some capability. He must have the capability to take on this job, and it is a gargantuan job.
And having the support of the Revolutionary Guard Corps, that is vital here.
Yeah, I think that was probably the core reason that the Assembly of Experts, which is the 88-member body that elects the Supreme Leader, that was the core reason that they appointed him. He apparently has links going back decades to the IRGC, and the IRGC are the military wing, almost the military police of the Islamic Republic. Yes. They wield enormous amounts of power, and although they have been degraded to an extent by the Israeli and the US strikes, I think they are still quite prominent. The election of Mujtaba Khamenei is a blow to anyone hoping for regime change in Iran, and indeed to President Trump as well.
Yes, because this guy is still going to be hostile, obviously, with the killing of his family, so, to Israel and America.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and it'll be very, very interesting what way he approaches America. You would imagine he will take a hardline stance. I mean, America is known as the great Satan amongst these people in Iran. I don't think that is going to change after what has happened over the past few days. People both sides trading strikes.
Yes.
Israel hit that oil refinery in Tehran. Tehran has threatened to hit an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. And that has obviously huge implications in terms of oil prices here. Oil has topped $110 a barrel. There is an energy crisis particularly afflicting Asia. Apparently there's panic in the Asian energy markets, and the fear is that would spread towards the Western world, and that would have huge implications here.
And with such a hardline leader now, maybe even more hardline than his father, any hope of negotiation, I guess, is that doubtful?
He's in a corner to a certain extent, because militarily I think this operation has been a success from the point of view of the US and Israel. I mean, they've degraded Iran's military capacity, they've effectively crushed the navy, and they have aerial supremacy over part of the Iranian skies. Now, politically, it has not, because you see this with the election of a hardliner. The question is, does the new Khamenei change his tune here? And realise that in order to perhaps save his Islamic Republic, that he's going to have to sit down at the table, and he's not going to negotiate directly with Mr. Trump, but he's going to have to make some sort of deal. Now, we're getting all sorts of mixed messages from the White House. That's worth noting. I mean, Trump looking for Iran's unconditional surrender. And of course, the next question is, what does that exactly mean? It could mean anything from Trump's perspective. It could mean anything from the dissolution of the Islamic Republic to the moderation of its policies and its hold over Iranian society.
But it's interesting to look at what would happen, though. I mean, even if an agreement was arrived at, I mean, surely there's just going to be a rebuilding of the ruling class again in Iran. Just from scratch, they'll rebuild again.
Yeah, I think that is a likelihood. I think it's not going to precipitate the widespread systemic change that many of those protesters would have hoped. Because there doesn't seem to have been a succession plan. It has been said that Israel and the US were planning this for months. Benjamin Netanyahu meeting Donald Trump, but there doesn't seem to have been an after plan, or at least we can't see it unfolding yet. Militarily, as I said, stunning success, and for all the lives that have been lost, America and Israel have struck Iran very effectively. They've assassinated the supreme leader, and they've decapitated a lot of the regime. But politically, there doesn't seem to be a succession plan. The Shah, or the son of the late Shah, Reza Pahlavi, was mentioned. He was kind of dismissed by Trump. And then you kind of find yourself going back to the Venezuela option, which doesn't really seem applicable to Iran.
It's interesting. And now this is beginning to hit Mr. Trump at home, because obviously the price of gas has gone through the roof for Americans, and with the big gas guzzling cars that they have out there, this is going to hit them in the pocket big time. So surely there's going to be a cry out to say, end this. This has to stop.
Yeah, and the thing about, I think Mr. Trump has framed this conflict in a way that he can call time at any stage. He can, the way he is, he can...
And claim victory.
And claim victory.
Yeah.
He can just declare a win. We took out the Ayatollah. We eliminated their ballistic missile threat, their nuclear facilities, even if that's not certain, and walk away. But I think the grand plan, the grand objective here, certainly from an Israeli perspective, would be to take out the regime and let something replace it. Now,
what would that something
there
be?
was talk over the weekend of arming the Kurds,
yes,
and that would trigger an insurgency in part of Iran.
And they would invade, essentially.
Yeah. And the Kurds have been allies of the US and Israel. They fought in the fight against Islamic State. They're spread across multiple countries: Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and I think their largest faction is in Iran. But that could trigger all sorts of implications.
So he's saying, Trump is saying no to that.
Trump is saying no to that.
Yeah.
Trump has effectively dismissed that. Now I suppose he could turn around theoretically and say we've reconsidered, but I don't think that is a strategy, because that could precipitate a civil war, and that, a civil war in Iran is not what the Middle East needs right now.
Well, what about the girls' elementary school that was struck? What is the latest on that, and who was culpable there?
It seems that it was a US strike. That's what a lot of reputable news agencies are reporting.
And again, Donald Trump is denying that.
Donald Trump is denying this. He's been almost silent on it, and then he said it wasn't us. He has dismissed their involvement. But I mean, whatever way you look at it, that is a war crime.
Yes. Is he claiming that it was an Iranian missile that went astray or something?
Yeah, that's the speculation or that's the suggestion that he has put out there. I don't see how that's tenable or how that holds up. I don't see how it holds weight. And I mean, with the civilian casualties there, and the fact that so many of them are children, it's going to warrant an investigation, and apparently it is being investigated, but you just don't know what comes out of those investigative authorities. But it seems that it was an American strike, from what I can glean.
The relationship then between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer, the UK and the States, would you just bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah, well, it plummeted on Saturday over the weekend. Trump chastised Starmer in a post on Truth Social. He had previously said that he's no Winston Churchill and derided him like that. He once again criticised our once great ally, the United Kingdom, and criticised them for only wanting to join the war when it was already won. Now, apparently, there was a phone call between Starmer and Trump late yesterday afternoon. It's not exactly clear what emerged from that, but there is speculation now that the UK will allow UK bases to be used for defensive actions against Iranian strikes, which is essentially a continuation of the policy they've been involved in up to now. But there's, it's creating a lot of friction within the UK domestically. You have Kemi Badenoch of the Conservatives saying they should have joined the strikes, Nigel Farage taking a similar line. And then you have parties like the Greens, Zach Polanski, the leader of the Green Party, who are on the rise after that win in that Gorton and Denton by-election, criticising Starmer for his approach. So all sorts of divisions within the UK at the moment, and certainly this doesn't bode well for the so-called special relationship between the UK and the US, and it puts Starmer in a difficult spot. He's already in a difficult spot at home for reasons that are well known. Internationally, he had performed a bit better, but suddenly now, in the face of this new crisis in the Middle East, he's in a bit of trouble.
But you can understand why he would be cautious about military involvement.
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
And there was an astonishing intervention by Tony Blair over the course of the weekend.
Yeah.
In which he effectively suggested that the UK should have joined in the strikes. Now, the irony of Tony Blair saying that when in 2003 it was perhaps the worst decision of a UK Prime Minister.
The weapons of mass destruction.
In many a decade. And that was probably the primary reason that Starmer was so cautious to join in those strikes. In the first place, he will have been obviously well aware of what happened to Blair, and people will have been in his ear, and he didn't want that. He didn't want history effectively to repeat itself. But certainly he has to walk a delicate tightrope here. Micheál Martin similarly will have to walk a very delicate tightrope on St. Patrick's Day when he meets Trump, because he is the next foreign leader.
Yes, and with President Conway now speaking out and laying her cards very firmly on the table, you'd imagine, is that going to affect what's going to happen in the White House?
Well, Trump can pick up on anything, and he's not going to like the fact that President Connolly, all somebody has to do is whisper in his ear that she's a leftist, and immediately that will create a bit of friction there. I mean, it is a balancing act that Micheál Martin has to play. Now, some people say, many people say that he should go over there and stick it to Donald Trump and almost not confront him, but stand up for Ireland's values. personally speaking, I think that's a bad idea. I think that would.
Well, all it's going to get you is a few moments of sort of theatre, and then after that, what about the outcome of that?
Well, indeed, yeah. And, you know, Micheál, or the Taoiseach, rather, I should say, is likely to take a much more balanced approach. I suspect he will try and steer clear of the Iranian issue, although it will inevitably come up with that press conference with leaders. But Trump is fond, like he's relatively fond of Ireland. He hasn't come at us like we anticipated because of the pharmaceuticals and that. They've been mentioned, but he hasn't attacked us, gone on a full frontal assault. So you would hope that it remains that way.
It's going to be interesting. Well, you did predict that this war was going to happen. Give me your prediction now on when it's going to end and how it's going to end, Thomas.
I think it'll be a 4 or 5 week operation. We're into what? We're into week 2 now. I think it will last a matter of weeks, and I think Donald Trump will create his own off-ramp and declare a victory at a time of his choosing. That I don't think the signs now, the indications are that won't mean regime change in Iran. That the current theocratic Islamic regime will remain in place, but it may moderate itself. Even though they've elected Mojtaba Khamenei now, even though there is a hardline successor there, if they continue to be degraded by the military strikes, and if the Gulf nations continue to express, anger at Iran lashing out, Iran will be backed into a corner, and I think it will have to go back to some sort of negotiation. And I think Trump will declare a win from that negotiation. Well,
the primaries on the way, and that will dictate a lot. I'm sure you will agree. Vladimir Putin, where this is concerned, then he's in a tough spot here, isn't he? To
a certain extent, he is, yeah, because this is the second Russian ally, along with Maduro in Venezuela, that the US has attacked or taken out, essentially, in the past number of months. Prior to that, he saw Syria fall under Bashar al-Assad, another Russian ally, and it does put him in a tough spot. The one thing is, though, there's a glimmer of light for him. I think he'll be laughing in delight at the higher oil prices. That is likely to benefit Russia, because higher oil prices, their poor compensation, they've shown, Russia's weakness has been shown up, but they do disproportionately benefit Russia because of the oil it supplies. So that will be an economic boon for him.
Yes.
But more broadly speaking, in the round, there are questions in terms of Russia's military relationship with Iran. There's speculation that Russia has been supplying Iran with, I think, S-300 missile defence systems. They're a sophisticated form of defence systems. Iran has for quite a while now been supplying Russia with Shahed drones, which have been used intensively by the Russian forces during the war in Ukraine. So it's a relationship which cuts both ways.
But there's no guarantee of military help.
No, and I think, I think Vladimir Putin will prioritise his relationship with Donald Trump over his relationship with the Islamic regime. I think that because it serves his interests more, because he sees he can play Donald Trump, and in relation to Ukraine, it's far more beneficial to him to keep Donald Trump on side rather than provoke him by going and doing something like, supplying the Iranians.
In other news then, China's president, is he getting hardline on disloyalty towards the party?
Yeah, he is. And there was a conference last week. It's called the Two Sessions Conference. It's a big political conference in China whereby the Chinese call it a parliament, but it's not really a parliament because China is a dictatorship. The Communist Party rules, but it does have a kind of a political structure there.
Yes. They
meet and determine economic policy, but Xi Jinping used it as a message to kind of crack down on anyone being disloyal within the party. People will remember maybe that he sacked 2 of his generals some weeks ago, and that was widely regarded as an indicator that he was not tolerating dissent, and he used this conference to reinforce that message last week.
New Prime Minister for Nepal?
Yeah, bordering China, country of 30 million people actually, and you'll like this guy now, Balendra Shah. He's a former rapper, and a hip hop, so a musician.
Why do you
like
think
yourself.
I might like a rapper?
Well, he's a musician. There's some relation there, you know.
Yes.
Now, he does have a bit of political experience. He was the mayor of Kathmandu, but this follows a revolution. Well, not a revolution. There was kind of an uprising in Nepal last September.
Yes.
There was over 100 killed. They called them the Generation Z or Generation Z revolution. And this is off the back of that. He's led this party to success, it appears. Results still emerging. And Balendra Shah is his name. He's about to become the next Prime Minister of Nepal.
And super election year in Germany as well, and sort of volatile time in Germany.
And there's an update in this. Yeah, Germany held a state election yesterday in Baden-Württemberg. That's a state in the southwest. I think it's one of Germany's biggest. It's one of the wealthiest states anyway.
Yes.
It was a blow to Friedrich Merz. The Green Party emerged from what the initial results are showing. The Green Party are going to emerge as winners there, and that is a big blow to Friedrich Merz. I mean, his popularity is not good at home. He's been very strong in the war in Ukraine, things like that, but the German economy probably isn't doing brilliant. Some people have described it as a disaster for him, but certainly it's a blow to his authority. And you mentioned super election year. Yeah, 5 of Germany's 16 states, and Germany is a federation, 16 different states, but 5 of them go to the polls this year. So all those elections are ones to watch.
All right, Thomas, pleasure as always. Thanks for coming into us today. Thomas Conway there from the Nina Guardian. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.